Hello friends and welcome back. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans, and all we do around here is look for the coolest, most interesting, and best looking places in the sim world, and then we fly over them. And if that doesn't make you want to jump out of your skin with excitement, well, there's plenty of golf channels out there too, and hunting channels, all the things that all my friends are doing and spending their money on. Not me. I'm in here with you guys. This is what I love, and I definitely spend all my money on this. I have got an amazing spot for us today, guys. We are going to check out a massive, and I mean massive, geoglyph out in the Australian desert that I had no idea even existed until I saw it on a low-budget documentary a few nights ago as I was trying to fall asleep, which is why you should always watch those. By the way, you never know what you're going to find. But like everything not on the coast of Australia, there is not much else out here, so we needed something fast and fun that wouldn't seem at all strange to be hand-flying. So I picked my favorite warbird, the P-47 by Airplane Heaven, which is working just fine, I should report, except that wheel looks like it's a little bit sunk over there, but a lot of the planes seem to be doing that. And we were out in Charleston not too long ago, my daughter and I, and we went to the Yorktown Museum, the carrier down there in Charleston Harbor. I'm not sure if they had one of these or not. I know they had Corsairs and Hellcats, and I just love these things. It's just like all engine. I know the Mustangs are a little bit sleeker looking, but this is just awesome. Look at all the oil and grease coming out of the bottom of that. Just incredible. Sounds good, flies good, love this thing. We haven't taken it since that Tallahassee trip back in 2020. Okay, let's hop in, and then we'll check out the map real quick, and then we'll get her going. I've got everything set up except starting it because I would have had to look all over the cockpit to find everything, so I think we're pretty much good to go, which we'll get back to in just a minute. All right, so there's Australia. We've taken a lot of trips down the eastern coast of it here, and we even had that one, which I think was down around this area right here in Western Australia, but I'm not sure. I don't think we've flown in South Australia yet, but we are now. So we're a little bit north of, which is actually way north of Port Augusta. That would be the next big town, I guess. There's certainly no big towns out here. We're leaving from just south of the town of Marree, and all we're going to do is fly out to the landmark and then back into Stewart Creek, and I didn't even put a label on it just so you can be totally surprised when we get out there. I think the whole trip is about 60 miles, and this thing's pretty quick, so maybe 15 minutes in the air, maybe 20, depending on how it goes. But just a heads up, I did set the sun to about 2 hours before sunset, which is going to make it a lot easier to see the landmark. The only problem with that is, at least for this time of the year, the sun is going to be directly facing us as we're coming in. And this is a dirt strip in the middle of a lot of dirt, so it's kind of hard to see. What I would advise is if you have a little nav map, if you like to fly our flight plans, just track it right along this. This is lined up with the runway heading, so eventually you'll see it. Probably at least 3 miles out, you'll see it for sure, as you're going to see once we're coming in here. So that's it, just out and back, but there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, and I can't wait to do it. So let's get that back over here, zoom in just a little bit, and fire this thing up. So all we should need to do is just charge it, and then let her rip. The only complaint I have about this plane, which is just a minor one, I'd probably add a little bit more of a bass note to it. As you're going to hear, it does sound incredible, but I really want it to be shaking my eardrums when I fire this thing up. We just have to charge it for about 10 seconds. That's probably good. And you guys ready? Here we go. Come on, baby. Come on. Maybe I didn't charge it enough. All right, we got everything on that needs to be on. Blower's on. Fuel's on. Let's prime it a bit more. Give it a pump. And charge a bit more. You got to do it right. 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, girl. You can do it. Come on. There we go. That's it. There we go. Man, is there any sound more beautiful than that? Just fantastic. So this does have this blower lever on it, which the real pilots would definitely use. It doesn't matter what you do with it here in the sim, it'll fly just the same. But in real life, if you didn't see that Tallahassee flight, what they would do is grip both the throttle and the blower levers here and slide them up together, because you want this light to be flashing all the time. So you'll see as we move it up a little bit, it starts flashing. That's what you want it to do. And since I don't have that mapped to anything, I'll just slide it up once we get in the air. And this thing does have plenty of torque, ridiculous amounts of torque. We'll leave the canopy open until we get down to the end of the runway. Parking brake off, just so we can listen to it. I'm going to leave the tail wheel unlocked. This thing is so hard to get up in the air. I think the only plane that's harder to get up for me than this one is probably that business liner. I still haven't managed to get that thing up without crashing, not even one time. This one's tough. It's squirrely for sure. But with this kind of power, and you got to give it like full right rudder trim, which we've already done. It's tough, and this runway is not really wide, but luckily there's nothing but dirt on both sides of it, so just brace yourself. This is not going to be one of my best takeoffs. And according to the manual, when you're landing, you also really don't give it any brakes in real life. You just kind of let it run itself out, And the brakes don't work real great anyway, so that's just fine. Except when you're going really slow, in which case you'll most certainly do a nose plant. So I am gently, gently applying the brakes. There we go. So we'll shut the canopy. Well, that gets a lot quieter, doesn't it? And we'll leave the cowl flaps open just while we take off, then we'll shut them because we don't have a lot of field of view. We're going to need every inch we can get, and we'll give it some flaps. Okay, let's see if I can do it, guys. Let's check the barrel real quick, and away we'll go. You ready to do this? Let's rock and roll. It's really not too bad until that tail wheel comes up, and after that, it's easy to lose control of it. If I can pull this off and stay on the runway, it will be the first of about 5 times I've managed to do it. Alright. Alright, come on. Up goes the tail. Oh boy. Come on. Stay on it. Stay on it. Yep. There we go. We got it. We got it. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Yes. Alright. We got it. Great. Well, we're up in the air. That's fantastic. Okay, let's get the gears and flaps up. This ground scenery out here looks great. Okay, shut the cowl flaps. You'll see a lot more of it here once we get going. And get our blower going. Come on, blinking. Okay, it's blinking. Very good. And now it's not blinking. There we go. All right, it's good. Okay, not a lot of mountains or anything out here, but what you can see, I think, looks pretty good. Photorealistic for most of it. There's going to be just a couple little minor issues, but overall looks pretty good. So that was Marree Airport that we left from, which is just south of the town of Marree, and it is not a very big place with a current population of around 65. Yes, 65. The first European explorers wandered through this area in 1840. Look at this down here to our right. Look how realistic that looks. That is amazing. It looks really, really good. Oh, so the first Northerners came through 1840. Sorry, I had to pause to soak that in. And they returned again 19 years later to do a little botanical studying. And during that second trip, they discovered a natural spring north of town, which they named Hergot Springs, after their German guide. And if the name would work for a little pool of water, it would work fine for a little town too, so they originally called Marree Hergot Springs as well. But they decided to change it in 1917 due to all the anti-German sentiment surrounding the Great War up in Europe. That's what happens sometimes. The town was officially established in 1883, just 1 year after they built the first mosque in the entire country out here in little old Marree. But it sounds like it wasn't very impressive. Not like the ones we saw out in Istanbul. I think this one was literally a mud hut. Well, they said mud and bricks, but we'll just call it a mud hut. But things really got hopping out here when they laid down some train tracks in the early 1900s, growing the permanent population to a stuffy 7 people. But the good times couldn't last forever. In 1987, the last train left the station in Marree, but they were kind enough to leave 2 of their locomotives behind, serving as backdrops for several movies filmed since 2000, and a sitcom, I think. So good for you, Marree. I can't even imagine how long it takes to drive out here. I bet it's a very long time. Okay, you guys ready for the big reveal? The thing we are heading out to see is called Marree Man, and it is easily the largest geoglyph in the world that actually looks like something. They've got some swirly lines out in India that are the largest by surface area, but what we are going to see is the figure of a man that is nearly 2 miles long. And even though it looks a lot like some of the very old figures we saw out in places like the UK, this one is not old at all. In fact, nobody is really sure how it got out here, but we know it hasn't been out here for very long. It was spotted for the first time by a guy piloting a chartered flight over the area in June of 1998. But when they went back through the history of satellite images, they discovered that it was not out here a month earlier. And after they hastily got down there to have a look at it on the ground, they found the outlines to be about 1 foot deep and up to 115 feet wide. So somebody was very busy out here for that one mysterious month. As far as who was responsible, well, that's a real cloak and dagger story too. Shortly after it was discovered, some anonymous press releases arrived at local media outlets, but the phrasing and references used in the letters gave rise to speculation that they were likely written by someone not from Australia. And the mention of a few obscure landmarks in the U.S. pointed to an American as the most likely source. And they also found a small glass jar buried conspicuously on the site. Inside it was a note with a U.S. flag on it, some references to the Branch Davidians, and language indicating the work was some kind of protest against the government taking control of Aboriginal land. And just in case there was still any uncertainty, about 6 months after it was made, they found a plaque buried 15 feet deep under the nose of the figure. How they managed to locate that is beyond me. And that also had an American flag on it, along with some additional semi-coherent ramblings. And once all the dust settled, the consensus was that it was either an eccentric and now deceased artist named Bardius Goldberg, who was just using all the American iconography to throw people off his scent, or some think it might have been some U.S. soldiers stationed in the region. But the reason Bardius Goldberg got figured is because a friend of his said that the guy was familiar with GPS technology and knew how to use it in conjunction with earth-moving equipment. And it was also reported that Goldberg received $10,000 after the discovery, but said he was not permitted to say where that came from. And although it wasn't mentioned on the Wikipedia page, in the documentary I was watching, they said that it had faded to the point of being nearly indiscernible after a couple of decades, but someone has since come along and cleared it back out. So we'll be able to see everything but the westernmost portion of it pretty clearly here in the sim. By the way, guys, since I failed to mention it up until this point, I am trying to climb up to 10,000 feet here. This thing is so massive. You need to be at least 8,000. We'll see if we can get up to 10,000, but the problem is going to be, as I've already discovered many times, trying to get down and slow down, that we're going to have to come all the way down from 10,000 feet to about sea level as soon as we take a look at this thing to make it to that airport. So I've got a strategy that I'm going to try this time to see if we can bring this thing in successfully, unlike my last 3 attempts. As far as the depiction itself, it appears to be a completely naked man throwing what looks like a stick or a boomerang. And someone with a lot of time on their hands has managed to figure out that the outline is an almost exact mirror image of the profile of an ancient Greek statue of Zeus that was hauled out of the Aegean Sea in 1928. The main difference is that this guy's right arm is bent while the statue's is outstretched. But I think they just ran out of space on the plateau where they made it. And there also seems to be a difference in genital size. But the Greeks kind of had a thing for making themselves feel better in that regard. And if this really is supposed to be a depiction of an indigenous person from this area, well, you know. That big body of water up ahead of us is Lake Eyre, and also the lowest natural point in Australia, plummeting down to 49 feet below sea level. And when it's full, which apparently isn't very often, it is the largest lake in the country as well. And man, it looks like the water level in that thing is all over the place. It looked different in every satellite map I pulled up. I was actually trying to use it as a landmark to find the big guy out here, but on several maps there was no lake at all, which did complicate things a bit. By the way, if you're thinking about using the map enhancement, don't use the Google Images. It is very faint. The figure is very faint on that one, and the coverage is pretty spotty out here too. I use the latest Bing map for this flight, and as you can see, it looks fantastic. Dead ahead of us there's going to be a little spot where there's a transition area in the lake, but as you'll see on the satellite map at the end, it's pretty rough right over the water there. Okay, so we're just starting to be able to make out our guy here. If you look over the left wing, our little probe is right over his right foot, and his legs are coming up there, and you can see the stick just in the corner by the wing in our sidewall there, sticking up, which he's holding up over his head. And there's his other leg. I'm just going to cut the throttle because we got to start coming down as soon as we come around. And it'll start to look a little bit better as we come around the other side here. So he's holding his left arm back over his head. You can easily see the 2 legs now. And then over to, I guess, the top of it from here, which would be to the west, is where it starts to get a little bit dicey, because part of his elbow, which has been up, and his hands up underneath his face, it's kind of hard to see, but you can really see the stick there. See his arm coming up? Almost 2 miles tall from foot to top. And you can kind of see how it's up on a plateau there. Yep, you can just see a little bit of that right elbow coming in. Not make it out really well. But that is really, really big. And you can almost kind of see that it dips into the ground a little bit. They said it's about a foot deep, but again, 115 feet wide at the widest points. Pretty incredible, huh? So before I tell you what I'm thinking for this descent and approach, I am happy to report I finally got my external panels working again. A huge thanks to one of our channel members who let me know Hudson recently posted a video about how he got his working. So big thanks to Hudson too. And you know, one of the things I like so much about the sim community versus the gamer community at large, on YouTube anyway, everyone is so chill around here. Heck, I might be the biggest spaz of the whole lot. Hudson, Obsidian Ant, Jonathan of course. I have Angel's a little bit feisty, but that's why I like her so much. Island Sim Pilot, man, that guy's not only chill, but he has been on an absolute tear lately with his performance tips. I don't know how the heck he finds all that stuff, and I sure have employed a lot of it. But I can only take so much of the flashing lights and cutscenes, techno music, backdrops. My brain is scattered enough as it is without the overdose of sensory inputs. Okay, so the last time I came out here, well, the last 3 times I came out, I thought I was coming down fast enough, but I did not have enough time to get this thing slowed down, and the last of the 3 attempts I had to do a go-around. So that's 3 scrapped recordings. What I'm going to try to do different this time is come all the way down and then just fly really, really low to burn off the speed. I'll probably even drop the gears and the flaps just to give this thing some time to burn that speed off. And you'd think it's not super aerodynamic, that it would slow down pretty quick, but it doesn't. And the runway's not really, really long, so I drove off the end of the runway for one of them. And boy, now that you can hit pretty much every little rock and pebble on there, that makes things a little bit more complicated, but very realistic, which I like quite a bit. So our announcements real quick as we're coming on in. If you want to take this flight plan just like we did, it is meticulously drawn out to give you the best view of that thing. Again, you'll want to get up to at least 8,000 feet, so you're going to need something that can climb really well and can come down pretty quick. You can see we're coming down at, well, we're at almost 400 miles an hour, so that's pretty quick. I don't know what the overspeeding is. I know the cruise speed on this is 250 knots, but I didn't wreck that thing coming down that fast. So just keep that in mind. If you don't know how to use Little Nav Map, which is where that link will take you, well, it won't take you there, but you'll download it and then open it in Little Nav Map. I do have a tutorial video for that. I hate to keep mentioning that for every single video, but I know we have a lot of first-time viewers here. If you don't know how to use Little Nav Map, go in our archives in the how-to section. I put together a very brief video that'll show you how to use that thing, get you going real quick, show you how to import our flight plans, bookmarks, all that stuff. And of course, the link to our Discord server will also be in the video description, where you can submit an entry for the quarterly flight plan competition. Right now we've got 3. We'll probably wait till there's 1 more in there, and I think we'll definitely have one. I've got about 6 different places I still need to check out. Then we'll close down the voting and vote as a sim community. And the winner gets a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of your choice, possibly $75, depending on whether or not our trolls participate. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out our London flight. Okay, so I'm going to try to get to about 1,000 feet here, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up the gears. We're getting pretty close to it. I'm going to get even lower here. I think it is safe to open the gears at 250 and the canopy, which we will most definitely do. Man, can you even imagine the rush of flying this fast in a beast like this with this kind of power? 250 knots and then sliding that window back. That must have just been incredible. And they said the reason they did that was to be able to check on the gears, which seems weird. Okay, let's do it. The next big challenge, assuming you can get down here and slow down enough, is finding this airport. Everything out here is dirt, and this is a dirt strip, and the sun is directly in front of us. So not easy to find, but if you follow the headings and the outline for Little Nav Map, it'll get you there. So the place we're making our way over to is Stewart's Creek, which is only about 25 miles from the big man. And if you thought Marree was a small town, they aren't even in the same league as this place. As of the most recent census, the population out here was 0. There used to be a few more than 0 people out here back when the train made a stop nearby. And there's also a little watering hole, literally a hole with water in it, called Coward Springs, which I hope is actually named after a coward, not a person. But the trains are gone, and on the Google map anyway, the springs were dry. So now it's just a place that Used to be. I'm having a little trouble maintaining our airspeed, so I'm going to bring those flaps up just a bit. One of the things I would really, really like to try out now here in 2024 are new scenery add-on packs, not ones that have been brought over from 2020, although I have checked out some of those and they look great. But I would like to see some that were specifically made for 2024. I had a little chat with Freaky D the other night on our Discord server, who is probably one of the most prolific modders of the 2020 era. And I was asking what he thought about it. He said he thinks there is a ton of potential, which was very, very cool and inspiring. I've had some conversations with Clifford. He's working on a new pack right now, which is supposedly going to be pretty cool. Can't wait to check that out. But I want to see if there is anything that new and different that they can do, or if just doing the same thing looks better here in 2024. And another one of our members sent me a link to a trailer for Bijan, who has made some swamps down in Louisiana, I think, with a bunch of cypress knees and stuff sticking up out of the ground. It looked incredible. He was the guy that had made a Seasons pack, and I don't know if it's part of it or not, but he's also the one that did that volcano that we toured, Stromboli, the thing that was erupting at night. If you haven't seen that video yet, I think it's called World on Fire. We flew the Huey up there. It was a really, really cool video. So I'd like to see what this is going to look like, but I feel like just the general default scenery, look at this stuff. It looks incredible. It really does. I mean, everywhere in the world I've gone so far, just the natural scenery looks so much better than 2020. All right, let's get those flaps back down again now. Okay, guys, here you go. You ready? Let's see if we can get this thing down. All right, well, our airspeed is still way too fast. We'll see if we can burn the rest of that off. The approach speed is supposed to be 100 miles per hour, and I think the VREF speed is around 85. But it just starts to kind of fall out of the air once you get to 100, so I'm going to try to see the runway right to the right of whatever that pointer thing is there in the center of our window. I'm not pointing directly at it now. I got to come over a little bit. Okay, there it is. You see it? Oh, it looks like they do have a couple houses out here in old Stewart Creek. All right. So once I get over the houses, I'm just going to cut it and then try to burn all this off, because again, the brakes don't work great in this thing, and just hope we have enough runway this time. I had a really nice landing last time and then bounced off a big rock at the end and crashed. Okay, here we go. Come on in. Kill the speed. Kill the speed. We're still at 100 knots, 100 miles an hour. Alright, just stay over the runway. Alright, I think we're going to do it. No big hops. There we go. We're a little bit off center. Okay, we're down. I think we made it, guys. Let me just try to get back over the center of the runway here. Back pressure on the stick. And give it some brakes. That's full brakes right there. Not much happening. Okay, well, we made it. That's fantastic. So let's just shut the mix off here. Whew, man, what a white-knuckled ride. They all are. That's fun. Okay, quick peek at little nav map. Let's see what we were dealing with here. Centering off. Tail off. Let's go back and start at Marree and see how big this place really is. It looks to me like you'd think there'd be more than 65 people down there, but that's not a big place. Maybe a lot of them are vacant. And then here is their old train engine. There's one there. Oh, they've got 3 of them. So 1, 2, 3. They all look to be about the same type, but you can't really tell because this is really blurry. They do have a couple tennis courts. And a hotel. And a community hall. And a cricket ground. Look at this. That's fantastic. It looks like someone probably just shuffled their feet around to make the borders to the cricket ground. That's awesome. And their power station, that's got to be just like a diesel generator or something. Now, I'm kind of wondering if this big loop here is a remnant of when the trains were out here. I don't see any tracks, but it does say they have some gantries there and some cattle yards. Yeah, I bet that's what that was. I bet the trains would just loop around there unless they're bringing trucks through here. I got a few cars, but I don't see any trucks or anything. And then a race course. Man, they got everything. So I guess everyone in town is probably required to be a stock car driver, or else you're not going to have very much competition out here, are you? That's just great. You can make anything you want. All you need to do is just clear a little bit of dirt away. Amazing. And that original spring that they found was somewhere right around here. Maybe even further north than that. It was about 15 miles north of where the town is today. Hergot Springs. And let's look at our man real quick. He looks a lot clearer here in the Mapbox map, doesn't he? That's very clear. So you see over here, the elbow for some reason is not showing up. Well, if you get closer, you can see it. Yeah, you can still see it. It's harder to spot further out, and definitely was hard to spot from the air. But that is big, so let's just kind of measure that. Let's see what the diagonal distance is. Almost 2 miles from the tip of his little stick there down to his foot. That's pretty big. That's really big and incredibly detailed for something that massive if you're drawing it with earth-moving equipment. And it looks like he had to make a couple passes, too. Everything is incredibly detailed. This would have been my favorite part here. Imagine trying to map that out in your little GPS program to put it in the earth mover. So there's a big lake there. And I guess when it's totally full, this is all part of the lake here. I guess it connects up over here. These things probably fill in. You can kind of tell there's some little rivers connecting, but you can see by the satellite image that based on when the picture was taken, it was in various different phases of fullness. And then we came on down here to Stewart's Creek. And there is not much going on out here. You know, in the Google map, I couldn't see any trace of any lines whatsoever, so they may have even made another shorter runway here, and you can kind of see, we can't remove this because we're parked at it right now, but if you took this away, you can kind of see that line right there of where the runway would be, so maybe they have used it fairly recently, but as of the last census anyway, there's nobody out here. Maybe just a little pit stop if they bring in some plane fuel or something every now and then. Yeah, not much going on at all. Well, what is this? You know what? That looks an awful lot like... I mean, surely nobody's plowing fields to grow anything out here because no one's growing anything anywhere out here. I'm kind of wondering... Oh yeah. Look at that. I think the guy was probably practicing out here for his big figure he was drawing, because who the heck else would take the time to do that? Let's see how big that is. 1/3 of a mile. That's a lot of work for no purpose whatsoever. I'm wondering if that is a remnant of when that guy was practicing. Look, a couple little circles down here. Very interesting. Well, cool little flight regardless. I hope you decide to take it. Who doesn't want to fly around out in the Australian desert at sunset? Just absolutely beautiful, really cool, and very, very unique landmark. I bet not a lot of people in the world have ever heard of that thing, the Marree Man. So very neat. I think our next flight is probably going to be my private helicopter lesson, which won't be very private for long because I'm going to post it here on YouTube. I'm going to have a real-life helicopter pilot in the cockpit with me. At least I hope it seems that way. And he's going to give me a couple pointers about transitioning from takeoff to flight and then flight back to landing. Should be very cool. So keep your heads up for that. Had an absolute blast as always, and I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.